But worst of all is Sanji, who if a pretty woman blinks in his direction, becomes an absolute doormat. She could have world genocide on her mind, but if she looks like Sydney Sweeney, Sanji gonna spend the first 15 minutes of the episode hearing her out, another 5 getting her plan into action, then the remaining 5 fighting her control, only to allow himself to get sped up. So I was kinda harsh on Sanji before. Yeah, it wasn't pretty, but my thoughts have evolved somewhat, and I'm finally ready to discuss them in detail. But first, I got a lot of One Piece to review with you guys. So if you don't want any spoilers, here's your warning. Just finished Dressrosa, and I gotta say, it's one of the best anime arcs I've watched in a long time. I'm talking about the shit was fucking goated. How much this saga added to the overall story was just immense. With its lore and the wealth of characters it introduced, Oda might just be the GOAT. Well, until Togashi gets that Hunter x Hunter Succession War arc animated. Okay, now for some shoutouts. Gotta give a mention to my boy Soldier-san. His plotline was crazy. From being a toy that protected the overthrown princess, to having watched the princess's mother die in his hands, to the big reveal that he was actually a human commander turned toy. The dead woman was actually his wife, and thus the princess he was protecting all along was actually his daughter. Wow. Another standout was Law. I low-key got the hype at Shabari when him, Kid and Luffy were tag teaming the Navy like a modern day Shield. But nah, Buddy was on a different timing that entire arc. This brother was a straight up shooter, masterminding plays left, right and center. But let me be honest, one man stole the show completely, and that man was Doflamingo. Like, watching him plot and scheme his way throughout Dressrosa made me realize I haven't seen a good fucking villain in a very long time. And I had high expectations of him since even before starting One Piece, because everybody includes him in their top 5 anime villains list. And I'm just so happy he didn't disappoint. But the biggest thing I learned from the Dressrosa arc is an understanding and appreciation for Sanji's character. The complaints I had in that previous clip stem from 2 main causes. First, Sanji consistently goes overboard in his love for women, leading him to at times over-sexualize them or just look like a damn fool when a pretty girl appears. Second, Sanji's inability to harm women, even if she's an enemy who has harmed him or other people. Now, I'm not here to justify all of Sanji's actions. Sometimes, Sanji's just a weirdo. And a few times, he's a stone throw away from getting put on a Me Too list. Yet, at the same time, I do believe there are underlying reasons that contextualize his actions, which I want to talk about today. So let's begin. But first, please like and subscribe. 2024 was a big year for us, and I know 2025 will be even bigger. So drop that like, subscribe, plus comments down below your favorite One Piece arc. Thank you. Point 1. Sanji is a lustful freak and low-key pervert. Let's not lie, Sanji definitely does too much. But hot take, I genuinely believe Sanji is the only person who is cognizant of the amount of ethereal, mind-bending baddies the Straw Hats are encountering on their journey to the One Piece. I mean, all the other Straw Hats, bar Brook, couldn't care less about the attractive women they meet. And half of Brook's shtick with women is just to sniff their panties, so I'm not gonna include him here. But please, can we all recognize that the sheer number of baddies Sanji is encountering on a daily basis is not normal? And I partly blame Oda for this, because I've never met a mangaka who is so dedicated on having every female character of his have a non-existent waist and breasts the size of Kilimanjaro. But even considering that, the level of beauty Sanji is exposed to in One Piece is wholly inconceivable. Like on TikTok, we are always talking about how men were never meant to see this amount of bodies in our lifetime. Back in the olden days, you were lucky if your village cutie still had all her teeth. Now you hop on TikTok, search on Google, and you're seeing that 1 in a billion beauty that could turn you schizophrenic by staring too long. Even NBA stars start wilding the second a pretty girl with a mic appears.
Who do you look at around the league as you're studying and say, we're going to have to run through them?
Celtics.
No one in the West.
Nah. I'm fine on the rest.
And for some men, the problem of the baddie conundrum is a hell of a lot worse. Some guys become shit partners because they think they can always do better, while other guys turn to porn completely because in their minds, the women around them simply can't compete. Now take that kind of issue, multiply it by 1 billion, and you're only beginning to taste the situation that Sanji is constantly in. Like the first girl Sanji meets that comes to mind is Nami, a woman who is already teetering on the very edge of the attractometer. That added with her seductive personality, and it's no wonder he became her personal slave. The brother never stood a chance. And from there, it only gets worse. I've done the research, and Sanji is on average meeting 1 to 2 brain-breaking baddies per arc. From princesses of desert kingdoms, to angels, to secret agents, to ghost girls. And just to go back to the secret agent one, it's there that the Straw Hats permanently pick up, in my opinion, the most beautiful iteration of a woman ever in One Piece. Pre-time skip Robin, cementing the truth that older women are in fact superior. So Sanji experiences all of this, which would already send most men into a spiral, only for the problem to become infinitely times worse by him spending his 2 time skip years on Momoiro Island. An island where the women look like this and were chasing him down to forcefully kiss him and do other unspeakable things. Now how would you feel if you were Sanji? Wouldn't you have an even deeper appreciation for the attractive women you met henceforth? Especially considering you're being whiplashed from that to seeing the literal Boa Hancock, fabled mermaid baddies, a mythical mermaid princess, a winged seductress, and finally a Dressrosa Latina shorty that was feeding you heavy. I'm sorry, I don't give a fuck what anybody says. No man can view that many goddesses and still have all his marbles. And the fact that all the other crewmates have minimal to zero reactions to this amount of beautiful women kinda leaves it up to Sanji to be that stand-in for how the regular guy would react in that situation. Similarly to how Usopp is a stand-in for how the regular human would react to the amount of dangerous situations and incredibly strong opponents the Straw Hats face. So I think Sanji's fervent quest to get close to as many honeys as possible kinda makes sense. Because if any guy was put in that position, that kind of pressure will have us all shooting a couple of crazy shots too. Still doesn't excuse Sanji's pervert behaviors, which should always be called out, but in my belief, it does make his overall behavior a bit more understandable. The other major issue I had with Sanji's character is that he won't fight a woman and often puts himself and the crew in compromising positions because of this. Now, I won't lie, this was the most annoying aspect of Sanji's character when I first started watching One Piece because of how frequently it popped up. But I do think that Sanji's case is the perfect example of the difficulty and benefits of keeping your morals. We all say we have morals. We don't steal, we don't talk shit about others, etc, etc. But I fear that people don't really understand the struggle and need with constantly abiding by a moral code. The closest example I can think of a character's moral code we are all generally aware of is Batman's no-kill rule, which Batman gets a lot of pushback for.
Ignoring what he's done in the past. Blindly, stupidly disregarding the entire graveyards he's filled, the thousands who have suffered, the friends he's crippled. You know, I thought I'd be the last person you'd ever let him hurt.
But true Batman fans know there is a legitimate reason for his no-kill rule, and an insane consequence when he violates it. Batman is not a mentally sound character. This is a man who suffers from extreme amounts of isolation, extreme amounts of mental torment and guilt due to the death of his parents. He literally took preteen orphans off the street and turned them into crime fighters, which definitely benefited the kids, but high-key benefited him more as he finally found a real family for himself again, which is kinda messed up when you think about it. So if you take a man like this, who's already teetering on the edge, and you make him judge jury, and executioner, Batman is going to go to a place so dark that what comes out will be worse than what any Gotham villain could be on their best day. And even Batman knows this.
But if I do that, if I allow myself to go down into that place, I'll never come back.
So how does this relate to Sanji? Of course, Sanji doesn't suffer from the same exact trauma as Batman, but the idea that breaking their moral code would be worse than any ordeal they encounter is what I believe is shared by both of them. So the question now becomes, what caused Sanji to have this no harm rule towards women? And does it justify Sanji being continually beaten by female villains? From my research, there are two principal sources. The prohibition of harming women was a rule set by his previous cooking master, Zeph. It was a dead set rule never to be broken. And since Zeph is the man that saved Sanji from starvation and death and raised them, it makes sense that Sanji would honor him by keeping his teaching. The other, more my own headcanon reason is that before Zeph, Sanji was mistreated, beaten, and starved by his father and brothers. He never knew love by any man in his family. The only people that showed him love were his mother and sister, who eventually ended up freeing him from his father's grip. So I believe this experience permanently scarred an ideal into Sanji's mind, which was then reaffirmed through Zeph's teachings. That belief being that a woman should never be harmed, as her natural state is of goodness, delicateness, and love. And if they do evil, it's more a function of them being corrupted or coerced by someone else, and therefore they deserve to be forgiven and are capable of being redeemed. And though you and I know women have the full ability to be as evil as any man, we already have two big examples that support this potential view of Sanji's belief, those being Nico Robin and Violet. Nico Robin only became a criminal working under Crocodile for her own protection, and the moment she became too close to the Straw Hats and saw herself as a danger towards them, she gave herself up to be executed. But one man was already primed to attempt to save her because he was already working under the assumption that as a woman, she is good and deserves to be saved. And again in the Dressrosa arc, even though Sanji was betrayed and beaten up by Viola and her goons, he didn't stop believing in her innate goodness as a woman and the fact that though a ploy of deceit, she still asked for his help. So much so that Viola ended up actually asking for his help and became instrumental in the removal of the evil grip on Dressrosa, which highlights that while Sanji's moral code might not be 100% valid, it does prove useful enough to be seen as justifiable. So cool the hate on Sanji, he's actually a pretty chill guy, but definitely call him out on his more weird behavior. Okay, bye, thanks, follow, like, subscribe, love you guys.